2014 brings so many changes. It's the most amount of changes in over 2 decades in Formula One. The most significant of all the changes is definitely the powertrain. We've gone from a naturally aspirated engine to a turbocharged unit. We're going to a V6 turbo engine. It's a fuel flow limited unit as well. So it means that you don't just have unlimited amount of fuel to burn. So you have 100 kilogram fuel mass for the race. In addition to that, you are not allowed to burn more than 100 kilograms per hour. And that's a profile that changes with speed. The significant change on the engine recovery system is the fact that the power has doubled. So you've gone from 80 horsepower up to 160 horsepower. But even more significant than that is the energy that you're allowed to deploy has gone up by a factor of 10. So you've gone from 10 kilojoules per lap to 4 megajoules. So those two changes instantly change the game for the ERS system, and it goes from being worth 0.3 of a second per lap to over 2 seconds per lap. You're only allowed to harvest 2 megajoules per lap, so half as much as you can deploy. Therefore, if you just kept using it at the full allowance, you would run out of ERS. So there's going to be a lot of strategic use in the race where you're saving ERS when you're catching someone, then use all of it to burst past them. Although the weight limit's gone up, the amount of battery energy required, the ERS system, the actual turbocharged power unit itself, all of the masses increased on the car to accommodate all of that. It's very difficult to even achieve the weight limit because the teams have worked so hard to try and do that, and I think we're going to see a big investment in that during the course of 2014. The Gearbox is a completely new design. It's an 8-speed transmission. All the ratios are fixed for the year now, so every team has to decide their ratios before Melbourne. They get one single change during 2014 only, and then for 15 that's finished. That's just in case you made a really big mistake, because it's the first year of such a change. The only reason why you can have fixed ratios is really because of the fuel flow limited engine. Because that creates a very flat power curve between 10,500 and 15,000, it means that you can fix your ratios the same for all tracks. So therefore the gear ratios that you run at Monte Carlo will be the same gear ratios as what you run in Monza. I think when you look at the new cars, the 2 or 3 areas that the fans are going to see the most are really around the front wing area. You're also going to notice around the rear of the car, the whole rear wing configuration is different. And then also you'll notice the exhaust system is very different. Exhaust blown diffusers have disappeared now. The FIA have done that through ensuring that the single tailpipe from the single turbo runs down the centre line of the car for all cars and runs out the back and above the rear impact structure. So you can't direct the exhaust anywhere near any diffuser component. So exhaust blown diffusers are finished. The front wing itself is 150 millimeters narrower, so 75 mil per side. That's really significant in the way it affects the airflow around the front of the car, and also the front of the chassis is lower, so that you don't see the high chassis in terms of what we've seen in recent years. On the rear wing, what we used to call a wing beam on the car has disappeared. You don't have one anymore. Therefore, you're busy trying to recover downforce, because it means that the diffuser doesn't torque to the top wing the same way it used to. By torque, I mean aerodynamically torque. The 3 things used to be stacked together. You've actually killed something in the middle, so it makes getting downforce at the rear quite a challenge. And in addition to that, you've got the exhaust flowing over the top of it now. All of your airflow on a Formula One car is very critically tuned. Even if you move something by 5 or 10 millimeters, then it can make a big difference. If you move it by 75 millimeters, you're going to make a massive difference, and then you need to retune all the airflow behind it. In the early races, there's no doubt there's going to be significant reliability issues up and down the grid. We've already seen the start of that in dyno programs. We'll see that again in testing. To be honest, if you finish in the first few races, you're going to have a very high chance of scoring points. How long that continues during the year will be a race as well as a performance race. You're going to have a reliability race where people are just spending to get reliable. Could be like the 80s or even worse. The nice thing about big rule changes like this, they create a massive amount of stress and workload in the system, but for an engineer and anyone who's mechanically minded, they're fantastic because it's so interesting. All the engineers can smell the opportunity to gain advantage, and you learn so much because you try so many different things to regain performance, because that's the nature of our business. So it's always quite an exciting time. We'll see what happens in winter testing and the early races.
There's going to be a lot of development this year, and I think being with a team like McLaren will be very important because you know, us here we are good at developing. I think you'll see that in previous years. Sometimes you get a little bit wrong, but most of the time they're very good. So it's going to be a development race through the season, along with trying to get a handle on the reliability of the car. It's always pretty intense, and There's definitely been no let up for anyone this winter on getting themselves ready for the first race. I don't think there's any team that's found this winter easy. We really don't know where we will stand at the first race compared to others, but we know that we are heads down doing the best job we possibly can. Everyone is talking about how the engine is going to sound compared to a V8. You know, it won't sound the same, you know, of course not, but from what I've heard, it still sounds pretty good. It's a real mix in sounds because obviously you have the turbo and what have you, so it's quite an unusual sound. But I like it. I think it sounds good, and you know, it's not important for me to like the sound really. You know, it's important for me to have a car that I can win with. But for the fans, I think it's still going to sound good, and the racing on circuit this year, I think, is going to be better than ever. I really do. I've only seen Kevin a couple of times since obviously he was announced to be a race driver here. But I think he's got his head screwed on. You know, I think he's done very well in lower categories. Obviously, that doesn't mean everything in this sport. But from his test that he's already done in an F1 car last year, the young driver test, he obviously drove very well. He was quick, and from what I've heard, his feedback was very good, and that is something that is key in motorsport at the moment, especially at the pinnacle in Formula One. You know, we can all drive quick. It's the feedback that we give and what's really going to drive the development of this car, especially this year. So I'm looking forward to working with him. We haven't really spent a lot of time together, but hopefully we'll soon. Obviously, being the more experienced driver, yes, you know, the younger, less experienced driver will learn from you, and as he should, you know, because I've got so much experience in this sport. You know, he also brings something as well. You know, he's coming into a sport, he's fresh, he's not so experienced of the Formula One world, and I was that kid 13 years ago, so you know, I'm sure I've lost something over the years that would be nice to get back, so I'll be able to see that in Kevin, definitely. But yeah, 22 is a good number for me. It was in 2009 anyway. That's what I won the World Championship with before I came to McLaren. It's also the number that McLaren last won the World Championship with in 2008 with Lewis. So this team under Ron has won multiple World Championships back to the days of Ayrton and Alain and before. So there's so much history of Ron and this team, and you know, he's a true racer, he's a true fighter, and he really has built this team up over the years. So I think it's good for the team, it's good for Ron that he has the chance to really drive this team on again, and I think that everyone here is excited about the Challenger 2014 with Ron in charge.
The first few months have been really good with McLaren. I've done lots of work in the simulator with the engineers, learning about the new car and the new regulations, and trying to improve everything before the first tests. I've come a long way in the winter. The team has been great. They've helped me so much, and they've been so good at helping me out and making me understand everything. The car this year is gonna behave very differently to the old car. It has generally a lot more power than last year, and the downforce is different, so it's very fun to drive. It's going to be a big challenge, and in a way it's good for me because it puts everyone on zero again in terms of driving style, so I think it will be exciting for the fans. The car this year will have so much more power than last year, so it makes it more tricky. You will see more sideways driving, and you will see more mistakes eventually, and you know, it makes it fun. It makes it a challenge more than last year. The cars last year were very much at the top of their development, and they were so good that it's still very difficult to be the fastest, but in a way easier to drive the car. This new car is a bit more of a challenge, I think. Obviously no one has driven in real life, but from the simulator it feels more fun, old school sideways driving. It will feel amazing to drive out of the pit lane for the first time in Jerez. Obviously it's gonna it's going to be a shakedown test. It's going to be the first test, but still just feeling the car and feeling my own car for the first time will be fantastic. The aim for winter testing will be to learn as much as possible about the car, get to know the driving style and get used to the driving style, find the driving style for the new car. It will be very different, so there will be a lot to learn. I personally think that it's a positive thing that the rules have changed so much. For a rookie, it will put everyone a bit more on a level, and everyone will have to learn these new regs. So for me, I'm hoping that it will be very different, because then it means that everyone's got to learn, not only me. I don't really have any particular reason why I picked 20 as my number. It's the number that I had last year when I won the World Series Championship. I also had it in karting when I won the things I won in karting, and I think, yeah, it's just a number that's followed me a little bit, so I thought if we had to go for one number, then it should be that.
The biggest challenges for us to adapt to the widespread changes on the powertrain and aerodynamics this year are going to result in significant operational changes from recent history in Formula One. It's the biggest change that we've seen on the engine, gearbox, and also the chassis as well. Just meeting curfew times, getting through the workload of kitting engines, changing engines, gearboxes. Even if you don't actually have failures, that's going to be a massive task. There's a concept called 30-30, which means 30 wind-on hours a week against 30 teraflops of CFD usage per week, and you have to stay within that limit for all teams. So that's quite a big reduction from last year, and everyone will be looking around how to optimise that to get the best aerodynamic performance development during the season. In-season testing is back, so we're looking at 4 in-season tests, single car on the Tuesday and Wednesday after selected Grand Prix, and you'll use that for tyre development, chassis development, young drivers driving the car, systems, all those sort of things. So it's quite helpful for the teams in terms of mileage. And then the third thing is the driver numbers. So there's a new sequence of driver numbers where the driver actually selects his own number, that they're assigned for the career of the career length of the driver, and that's it. Well, at McLaren at the moment, the preparation is huge. So there's a hive of activity downstairs. We're obviously building cars, checking them and signing them off, shipping them off to test. We've got a test in Spain, and then we've got a double header test in Bahrain before we head off to Melbourne for the first Grand Prix. We're producing chassis. We have to introduce an upgrade kit for the first race. We run a night shift during the tests as well to help the mechanics and technicians just literally cope with the workload. So that's a really big normal part to the start of any year. Made even more so, even more difficult this year because of the rule changes. The reliability aspects of the car and the performance changes you're going to see during the year are going to be really significant. So if the team that wins the first race doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be still winning by the 5th race, and vice versa. The requirements on a driver are going to shift, so people are going to see the drivers who are intelligent and can cope with the workload while still driving fast and being the champions that they are is going to be a material differentiator. I think we're going to see differences across teams, not just from reliability and performance, but actually the way the driver can cope with it. Well, there's a real buzz around McLaren at the moment because we want to re-establish ourselves from in 2014. We're very forward-thinking, learning from previous mistakes, but making sure we really get ourselves back at the front. We're here to win. We've got Peter Prodromou coming in, so he's coming in the next year, which is great news. We've just taken on Matt Morris as engineering director, and his input's been fantastic into the team. It's an ongoing drive within McLaren to keep looking for great talent across the board, because that's what we're all about. The other program that's starting significantly now is Honda. We've been working with Honda for quite a few months now, with separate teams to our normal development teams. And there is so much excitement around that in McLaren because it's just a fantastic start to what we see as a great era with such a prestigious brand in Formula One. So that's something that's really good for the future.